Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Stephen Sackur. Comedy is subversive. It finds laughter in dark, difficult places. But when it goes wrong, well, things can get ugly. My guest today knows that. Kathy Griffin is an American stand-up comedian, probably best known for being pictured last May holding Donald Trump's severed head in her hand. The Trump head was fake, but the outrage was real. From the president, the TV network which fired her, the FBI which investigated her, and the public who heaped abuse on her head. What was and is Kathy Griffin thinking? Kathy Griffin, welcome to Hard Talk. Your stand-up show, which you're currently taking around the world.
Yes.
It's funny and it's frank, but to many people it is also shocking, and to some it's offensive. And I wonder whether you carefully calculate how to offend.
I do. I'm an expert at offending people. I've offended you just in the makeup room alone, because first of all, I can't believe someone married you. But good luck to her. Anyway, when I took that photo, one of the things that struck me was that people actually were saying that it was a severed head. So what I like to talk about in my act is I make a joke of it, like as if I went to the severed head store, which doesn't exist. So the outrage is faux, in my opinion. And I am, I don't have one single day of paid work ahead of me in my own country. And I'm a workhorse.
Because of the reaction, you mean?
Because of the reaction.
Well, let's get to that
right.
in a minute, but let's not start with the reaction. Let's start with the action.
I thought I was the guest, but really, let's do this your way.
No. Well, I'm
Don't
the guy who's asking
mansplain to
the
me.
question.
Don't you mansplain.
Well, let's start with the action of choosing to go into the photographer's studio with that mask and that ketchup.
Let me just stop you and say, one thing I will say that's difficult is the photographer, Tyler Shields, has the copyright. And I have no say in the copyright. And so I just have to say, because I trusted him, I kind of got screwed that he can make however much money from that image, which will sort of stand with me forever. So there's that.
I mean, that is the
Everywhere
truth.
I go.
And your biography and, frankly, your epitaph will probably be about the moment you decided to stand with
people
Donald
at airports
Trump's
want me
head.
to do that pose with their head, and I say I can't.
So, as I posed the question in the introduction, what were you thinking at that time? You must have known that you were crossing a line here.
Yes, of course. That's a comedian's job. That's what we do. I feel if you don't cross the line, well, I like to move it and then cross it. Then what are we doing? What am I going to do? Jokes about the differences between puppies and kittens?
Right. So
there's never been a president like this in history. There's never been a president who deserved to be shamed so much. And I really think the reason he had such a reaction, and his grown children, although I lovingly call them Eddie Munster and date rape. I don't know if they're fully formed human beings.
Well, let's stick with your thinking, because as we tease out your career, I think it's important to understand how you make decisions. So there you are with Donald Trump's head, and you adopt a pose which, of course, is reminiscent of those jihadists, those so-called Islamic State fighters.
Or Perseus and Medusa.
Well, perhaps, but in our day...
A lot of iconic imagery in comedy has been done with... There's a movie called Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag with David Spade. I believe there's a scene in Death Becomes Her where they roll Meryl Streep's head down a bowling alley. So this is all open for interpretation, but I want to be clear. None of this outrage would have happened if Donald Trump didn't get freaked out that a girl shamed him. That's what this is about. A girl shamed him.
Well, yeah, but you had depicted the beheading of the commander-in-chief, and America has sensitivities about the security of its president, not without good reason. You had crossed so many lines, I can't even count them. So I just wonder, when you talk about not being confused and being clear about what you were doing, you then, after all of this reaction, issued an apology. So are you sorry or aren't you?
I'm not sorry. I take the apology back 1,000%. And the reason I made the apology is that when the image went out, I really thought people would think it's just Kathy doing another shocking image. I've done many throughout my career, and I've said shocking things. When I won my first Emmy, I got in trouble because I said, "Suck it, Jesus, this award is my God now." And, you know, the conservatives took ads out in the papers, and that's what they like to spend their time and money on. So, yes, I knew what I was doing. And the reason I apologize is my good friend Rosie O'Donnell, the preeminent expert, by the way, on being trolled by this fool, the accidental president, as I call it. He's been trolling her for 10 years. And so she said the words, what if Daniel Pearl's mother saw this? And then, of course...
remind everybody, Daniel Pearl, of course, the American journalist who was beheaded in Pakistan.
Yes. And so when she said that, I said, oh my gosh. And I said, look, I've never apologized for a joke, but I get it. Now, what I need to be clear about, though, is that, number one, the apology wasn't enough. The Trump psychos still came after me, and the president was thrilled to have something to distract the country away from the Russia investigation and all of his other improprieties, shall we say. So I'm very aware that I, like many other folks, have been used as a tool to distract from his actual incompetence. I also believe...
So when you said I went too far, I apologize, I beg for forgiveness, that was all completely insincere. You were just worried about your career.
No, it was sincere at the moment. No, I'm not worried about my career. I have 2 Emmys and a Grammy and the Guinness Book of World Records
for
writing and producing more
bookings were drying up.
stand-up comedy specials because of TMZ. Because there's a website called TMZ.com. Why report those in real time, though? Like, TMZ.com reported the cancellations of my American tour, 50 cities, in real time. And also, I want to point out, I've actually been to Iraq and Afghanistan. Has Donald Trump? I've performed in a war zone, and I've performed under mortar fire. So I know exactly what I'm doing. And I'm more of a patriot than he is on his weakest day.
You seem to believe that Donald Trump has, in a way, organized a plot against you. I mean, you seem to be accusing him of being behind the Secret Service investigation,
Department of Justice.
The fact that you were briefly on a no-fly list.
First of all, I'm still on the Interpol list. I was detained at Heathrow. I've been detained at every single airport on this tour.
And you seriously think President Trump, sitting there in the White House, has time to say, oh, well, let's get Kathy Griffin?
Are you not aware of this guy? Yes, this is what he does. He doesn't govern. He worries about me and Colin Kaepernick.
Do you find Donald Trump funny?
You know, I've known him for so long, and that's why I'm proud of this tour, because, I've had this Trump material, honestly, just for like 20 years, because I've known this orange fool, the accidental president, I call him, for so long. But, the Americans didn't really take him seriously. Like, this guy shows up to the opening of an envelope. So I've met him several times, and I was seated next to him one time at a 4-hour event, and he turned to me and he goes, so, you're a female comedian? And I said, yes, next thing you know, we're going to want to vote. It went right over his nest. He's an idiot. He's a moron. Don't give him any credence or credibility.
Whether you like him or hate him, Donald Trump is a pretty extraordinary president. He is governing in a way that no individual has governed before. So
what do you mean by extraordinary president? What do you mean by extraordinary president?
Whether going on stage and slagging him off is actually comedy.
Well, I have personal experience with him. So remember, my current show, it's not just jokes about Trump. You're coming to see someone who actually has had interactions with him. And the idea that now he's accidentally the president through cheating, gerrymandering, etc., is sort of comical to me. Now, it's frightening as a citizen, but as a comedian, yes, it's a goldmine. And I have personal quotes from him. One time when I was doing New Year's Eve on NBC before CNN, Carson Daly goes, he's like a throwaway. He goes, do you want to interview the Trumps? And I go, only Melania. Oh, that was heaven.
You were fired by CNN. You used to do their New Year's Eve show with Anderson Cooper.
For 10 years.
Yes, 10 years, and now it's all over. Do you feel bitter about the way, not Trump or even the Secret Service and the FBI have treated your
I just want to say a 2-month taxpayer-funded investigation, which has never happened in the history of the United States. So if nothing else, respect the history of the fact that you're looking at the only woman, an American citizen, who the entire White House, Oval Office, family, Fox News, and the Department of Justice, and this is in Don Jr., Eddie Munster, in his words, we want to decimate Kathy Griffin. So it wasn't just ending my career. It wasn't just the death threats to my mother in her retirement village, to my sister as she was dying of cancer in the hospital. Yes, it's a campaign. It's all very well documented.
Yeah, the fact that you lost your sister in the middle of all of this, and I know that...
That's why I shaved my head. So I know I look like 11 from Stranger Things.
You mean in solidarity with your sister?
Yes, of course. So many of my death threats were, Dear Bald Dyke, I wish you died of cancer instead of your sister. So this is like a daily thing.
I mean, this does sound the most incredibly...
It's unprecedented.
...painful moment when your sister's dying.
Of course.
And I just wonder... why on earth you're now back on the road doing stand-up comedy, engaging with the very people, you know, whom you say tried to bring you down. You're still getting, I read it, the vile abuse on Twitter, because frankly, you still engage in Twitter. Hang on, it's two-way. You engage in Twitter feuds. You loose off sort of
what comedians don't? Name one comedian who doesn't.
Criticism of, no, but the point is, why do you want to play this game anymore?
It's my life. They're playing with my life. He's trying to stop me from making a living. I want to be a case study. And I'm very clear. The reason I'm doing this tour is because I want younger women, younger people of color, younger LGBT folk. I don't want this to happen to anyone else again. Doesn't matter who the president is, doesn't matter what your party is. This shouldn't happen to an American citizen. So my point of doing this tour is, believe it or not, it's actually not about me. It's I want younger people to look and go, all right, if they couldn't take that old bird down, then they won't take me down. Because this should not happen to an American citizen.
The death threats, are they continuing today?
Yes.
How do you handle them? I mean, do you take them seriously? Are they just water off a duck's back? How do you...
To be honest, I'm all over the map. Like, I'll have days where I'm just in a ball crying, and then I'll have days where I'm just defiant, and then I'll have days where, I mean, there's one I actually read on stage, because it's so over the top. A lot of the Trump fans aren't into the grammar so much, and sometimes it gets so crazy it's actually funny. So that's what I'm enjoying about this tour is, you know, one thing I've done my whole life is, most comics will tell you this, is we like to take something dark or difficult and spin it until we can make it funny and relatable. So sometimes I just will read a death threat on stage and I'll make hopefully hilarious comments. And yeah, my show currently is different. It's different than my regular act because now it has a layer to it that it never did. And, you know, I got a standing ovation at the Sydney Opera House. And trust me, nobody in Hollywood cares one bit.
Well, no, I suspect that's true because it seems to me you're now in this weird position where you're bringing in big crowds in big arenas around the world and you cannot get a gig in the United States of
Correct.
America.
And no one will lift a finger.
You're finished back home.
We'll see. We'll see. You never know. Never say never. But yeah, the point that no one will lift a finger hurts. So I've never been more on my own, and yet, honestly, I've never had more fun with the material.
Well, we'll get back to the way showbiz works in the United States before the end of the interview, because it does raise all sorts of other issues which have been in the news a lot recently. But I want to just stick with the personal for a bit longer. You talk about how you take the dark stuff in your life and you spin it around until actually it's comedic as well as painful.
Yeah.
But, you know, you do that to an extreme. I mean, you pick apart your own life and some of the really darkest corners that you had in your own upbringing in a way that I can't think many other people would be able to do, including abusive behavior inside your own family when you were a child.
Yeah, my brother was a pedophile. So when, you know, all this Harvey Weinstein stuff is going on, you know, I kind of know certain words and certain triggers, and I'm kind of aware of all that stuff. And, you know, I was sexually assaulted myself twice. And yes, I could be tweeting Me Too, but frankly, my narrative is a little bit more about being, it's about ageism and misogyny. And that's kind of what I've experienced more than any other challenge.
But is there not some stuff inside your own family that for them as much as for you, it would be better not to put out there as part of a stage
I don't cover for pedophiles, even if he was my brother Ken.
Well, I'm thinking of your mother. I'm thinking of your
water.
mother's feelings.
Hey, the truth hurts. Like, you have a pedophile in your family? You think that doesn't affect you? So yeah, it colored my whole life.
I mean, to be clear, he was never convicted.
He was never convicted. He did go to prison for other offenses. But he would talk to me about it in a way that was unbelievable. So, you know, when you grow up like that, hearing things that really no child should hear, then it turned me into the type of comedian, the anti-Ellen, if you will, where obviously my kind of comedy is very sort of boundaryless and in your face. And I think that's why the folks who come to my show, I tend to get a majority, you know, forward-thinking people who, like I said, feel disenfranchised, people who can't be shocked. And honestly, I think that's why I'm doing well here overseas is I can't shock you people.
Yeah, I know there are some novelists who find that there are certain things they can't write while their parents are still alive. Obviously that for you and your show has never been an issue. Does your mother come and watch your show?
Oh yeah, but she'll only come see me in Los Angeles because she won't get on a plane anymore because she might get the runs. Look, that's how I was raised. She talks about getting the runs. Also, old people are very into that and they talk about their ailments a lot. I know all of her ailments.
Is comedy, has it always been for you? Because you had a difficult upbringing and you've had a complicated life. Has it always been a form of therapy?
Well, let me just be clear. My life now is much more difficult than my upbringing. Like, my upbringing was, I would say, almost typical for a comedian. But let me tell you, my journey through my 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, it's never been harder than now. Never. And that's why I'm speaking out more. Because the people who kept me down, especially the men, the Jeff Zuckers of the world, I mean, that SOB. You know, first of all, I do 4.5 hours last year on CNN. We get our highest ratings after 10 years. I'm not a CNN employee. All those people that hate CNN or whatever, I work there one night a year. Yeah. So what do I get for it? I get fired.
You got fired?
Yeah.
Here's what I see as a paradox in your life.
Oh, you should see what happened when I tried to get a raise.
Well, I dare say many people watching this will have been there themselves. So
but
we can
I just
all relate
want women
to
to know, like when Sheryl Sandberg says lean in, in my case, I fell on my face and broke my nose. So good for her. I leaned in and I got a bloody face for it.
Why do you continue clearly to have this drive and ambition to make it in showbiz? And you have made it. You've won 2 Emmys, but you know you're really hurt
and
now.
I have a big fancy house.
You are so burned up by the fact CNN have fired you, and you clearly.
I'm burned up. But the tour is what really hurts.
But
the CNN thing.
Let me finish the question. You hate showbiz in so many ways. Why?
How dare you? I love it.
No. Well, look. Why then have you've talked about a business that has? Over time, it has encouraged, or if not forced you to get cosmetic surgery, to get so sick with different forms of losing weight because of a particular way they want women to look on screen.
2 nose jobs, all that stuff,
You took speed to lose weight.
I love you go back to the speed because that's just funny. Like, I took speed back in the day where it was called speckled eggs, and I don't even know if they make those anymore. But yes, when I was like 19 working in a shop, I took speed to try to be thin because I had so many agents say, if you were thinner and you weren't so ugly, you might work. And I believed it at that age.
But you know, men, it has to be said, don't suffer in the same way. You know, I've never been told, God knows I probably need it, but tooth job and hair job and face job. But men probably don't suffer the same way that women get these demands placed upon them to be on screen, particularly in the United States.
Yeah, and I feel...
So why on earth do you still want to do it?
Because I feel, first of all, I love it. I really love it. There's nothing...
Weird.
Well, how can you say that? There's nothing better than making people laugh.
Why do you love being in a business that objectifies you, demeans you, judges you on the things that you don't regard as truly important, and yet you love it?
Because I think I've finally figured out a way to run it like a boss. And I have all male employees. Every material is my own. I don't have writers like many of the other female comedians. Like I said, I've done 23 stand-up comedy specials, and I just wanted to be in the Guinness Book of World Records for younger women, you know, to not have to fight that stigma of, oh, women aren't as funny.
Right,
so I like to kind of set these records, so after I'm gone, younger women go, okay, maybe I have a shot. She did it, so I'm going to try for it.
But it's not even just about the sort of the demands on looks and weight and everything else. It's also a basic sort of thing about money, isn't it?
Of course.
Mean, you've said, you know...
I would kill to make 80 cents on the dollar. When women say, oh, 80 cents on the dollar, in my business, I make a nickel on the dollar. You think I make anywhere near my former groundling student, Will Ferrell? I was his groundling teacher.
Oh, yes.
Yes. You think I make Sandler money?
So how do you change? You know, here you go. You say women are doing better. And this is a quote from you recently. And I'm not saying there isn't progress, but there is not a woman in Hollywood who can really sign a check.
Correct.
For example, a woman Rupert Murdoch. So what's going to change that? To turn the people with the money and the power to get more women in those positions?
Well, first of all, women have to not be discouraged out of the business. So one thing, obviously, people are talking about a lot is Weinstein. And one of the things that breaks my heart is all the women that either became addicted to drugs after being raped, how could you not? Or just left the business, how could you not? So one thing I want to do is I just want to stay in it. You know, I'm not going to let them win. And luckily, like I said, when I do the Vicar in Dublin or when I do the Palladium, it's like 2 hours, sometimes I go longer, and I can just breathe. And I love it. And I'm not a snob about comedy. I don't care if it's a funny commercial. I don't care if it's a funny sitcom. I've done them all. I've done a reality show. I've done a talk show. Any opportunity to make people laugh, I really cherish and I love.
But you say, I'm not going to let them win. And yet in this conversation, we've already acknowledged that right now your career in America is effectively over. You're not getting the live gigs. You're not getting the TV work. Do you even want to be in America anymore?
Yeah, I mean, it's my home. And we'll see what happens. You know, anything can happen. I'm going to finish this tour, I'm going to go home, and I don't know what's going to happen. It's frightening to me to not have, like I said, a day of paid work. And by the way, you should know, all the celebrities I make fun of, they always call me to host their charity gigs for free. So they like hate me until they want the free performer. And Chelsea and Sarah said no. Anyway, I love doing it. And I will keep doing it. And thank goodness stand-up is the one thing that even a horrible man, and I could list the names right now, can't stop me from doing, because as long as there's an audience and a mouth and a microphone, then I can do that. So that's what I'm doing now.
Do you feel patriotic?
Look, I think, like I said, when you don't just go to Afghanistan unless you're patriotic. You don't go do stand-up in Uzbekistan and Kuwait and Iraq if you're not patriotic. So of course I'm a patriot. I'm more of a patriot than any of those Nazi Trumps on a good day. And yeah, I think our president's a Nazi. I think that people should be very frightened. I think there's an actual Nazi, at least someone with Nazi leanings, in the White House. Wake up.
But the very fact that, you know, we began the interview with you saying that sort of thing, and we've ended the interview with you saying that sort of thing.
Because everyone's so afraid to say it, yeah, especially the American journos.
But the way you say it and the fact that you're so determined to say it suggests to me that you burnt your bridges in the United States, and you know, networks who have to ensure that they sort of appeal to a wide range of different people across the nation aren't going to put you on TV.
Are you nuts? Wait till I do the first thing that gets ratings. They will come running back. That's all they care about. I do one thing that gets ratings, boom, they're back. It's happened to me like 4 times in my career. I mean, I know the cliche, this is my first merry-go-round. Up and down, I've gone up and down, and I learned so much from my dear departed friend, Joan Rivers, about riding the wave. And at the end, she was fearless and peerless and didn't give a you-know-what. And I think that's kind of essential for comedy.
Well, interesting. Didn't give a you-know-what. I mean, it seems to me, given the choices you've made to run your career, you have to have the thickest skin imaginable. You can't afford to show pain and vulnerability. And yet, in the fallout from the Trump head incident, you did show pain and vulnerability, and I think you've even, particularly talking about your sister, you've cried on stage.
Yes. Look, this is all new material. So when I'm standing on stage at the Sydney Opera House.
You can't afford to be vulnerable, not the way you've chosen to run your career.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think the folks that come to my show, they know they're going to get something real. You know, I think they know my act is very improvisational. It changes all the time, and I love changing it. When I play Vienna, I'll do material unique to that city. When I play Antwerp, all right, I can't find it on a map, but I'm going to make Antwerp funny. And I love changing it. That's what keeps it fresh and fun for me.
I want to end with some words from Ricky Gervais. I don't know if you know him, but you know, he's made it in America now as well as in the UK.
He's been to the House.
Yeah. Well,
and no, he didn't call either.
Listen to this. He says,
I owe Kathy a call. I feel guilty.
He says he has no problem offending people, but he says, yes, we comedians have the right to say horrible things, and everyone else has the right to hate you for doing it. You say horrible things, you have to take the consequences. Are you prepared to live the rest of your life on that basis, saying horrible things and then taking the consequences?
I think I've proven that. Never has a comedian been on the Interpol list and the Five Eyes list. So obviously I'm willing to take it.
But what kind of a life is it? I mean, you're in your 50s now. If you
57!
Carry on.
And every time I was detained here, I'm going to be detained in the next airport. And you know what I'm thinking during that 20 minutes? I'm thinking, I wonder if I can put this in the act. I might want to mention that one guy. He's kind of funny. That could be good in the act.
But that's a lonely life, isn't it?
No, I have a great team. My boyfriend is my tour manager, don't judge. And we travel the world together like Loretta Lynn and Boo. That's a very obscure American reference. But I love it. I just love doing it. And you know what? Kind of without the other stuff like the agents. And for the first time in my life, I actually don't have someone saying, you're an ugly old hag, stop. I don't have those people around anymore. So I have it a little smaller, and I get to just do my job and love it. And at the end of the show, they stand.
Kathy Griffin, it's the end of the show. I can't stand, but
Steve.
I'm going to thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. I'm a big fan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I am. I love it.